These are the 10 reasons why you might still be stuck going into 2023 with OCD. Now, one of the big mistakes that I made was when the new year came around, we set a lot of goals, and I'm a big goal setter myself, but I think the problem is with goals for a lot of people is there's no real intentionality behind those goals, and they set those goals knowing that they're probably not going to do what it takes to reach those goals, which is understandable because reaching a lot of those goals requires stepping out of your comfort zone, changing your belief systems, and realizing the things you have been doing for a while aren't working anymore. Now, I wanted to wear this zoo shirt, and this shirt means a decent amount to me. It's weird. When I had a really, really bad relapse about a year and a half ago, I remember I was wearing this shirt and I was thinking, I can't even enjoy my time at the zoo because I'm having such a hard time right now. Then I realized that that wasn't true. I remember sitting on the bench at the zoo thinking, that's not true. This mindset that I use, this kind of like self-pity mindset when I would have a relapse, and I didn't really understand that this is all part of the OCD recovery journey and anxiety-based journeys. So I need to kind of pull myself out of that and take a whole different approach. And that's why I wanted to wear this shirt in that video. So let's jump right into it. And before I go any further, please subscribe, hit that like button, comment down below. Let me know what you think about this video. Let me know if there's anything you would add to this, anything else you want to see me do. Like I said, I've been taking a lot of requests, writing those down and going through that systematically and making the videos for you guys because I know a lot of people enjoy that. And if you're interested in our coaching and webinar services, please reach out to info@ocdrecovery.com and we'll get back to you in a timely fashion. So I have the 10 things written down right here. I've done a bunch of videos like this before, but I wanted to think of a couple different things I haven't talked about in a while. And I think all of these are very important when it comes to your overall progress, breaking down beliefs, moving with uncertainty, exposures, and everything like that. The first thing I want to talk about is why you're more than likely still stuck is you might be hyper fixating on exposures. Now, exposures are very important, but certain fears, like my main one was sensory motor OCD, right? Internal bodily sensations. I call them the big five. Breathing, blinking, swallowing, salivating, heartbeat, saliva, all that stuff. You don't need to expose yourself to those usually. 99.5 out of 100 times. Now, if someone's really scared of a sensation, I might set them some exposures to kind of sit the timer on for 10 minutes and just notice their breathing, and they'll probably have a couple panic attacks. But after a while, it's important to realize that you're going to breathe for the remainder of your life. You're going to salivate for the remainder of your life. Your eyes are going to blink for the rest of your life. Your heart's going to beat. Your bridge of your nose is going to be there. All those type of things, even though it's not a bodily, internally function, it's still in that kind of hyper-awareness category. So exposures run their courses. I just got off the phone with someone that had been working on some particular fears for a very long time now, and he asked me, do you think I have to do any more exposures? And I said, no, and then we came to agreement. I said, exposures really have run their course. At this point, you're really just kind of forcing exposures. A lot of people, unfortunately, still think that you can't force exposures. You can. It's chasing another type of a feeling, so there's a balance between them. Then the question comes in, am I doing it too much? Am I doing it too little? And kind of going with that uncertainty and realizing that there's no actual line in the sand on what's the right amount of times for an exposure? What's the too much? What's too little? You're going to have to move with that uncertainty and kind of go from there. But exposures are a key part, more important than big ones like contamination OCD, certain type of harm OCD, and ritualistic OCD like perfection, where you're doing lots of checking, outward checking. But there's also a lot of fears like the fear of death. There's not an exposure for that. I don't know if you've noticed, you can't end your life and come back to life. So you're going to have to break that down conceptually. Yes, you can watch documentaries called Endgame. We talk about coming to the end of life and stuff like that, but there's only like a handful of those, and it really comes down to getting comfortable with a sensation and breaking down the eventual, the way how we all die. I just poured myself a hazelnut coffee, and it's amazing. The second thing I want to talk about, which we talk about a lot, are the lifestyle factors. Now, what are the lifestyle factors that I'm talking about? Balancing sleep. Are you cooking some of your own meals or eating out all the time? Processed food. A lot of people who are really busy and actually make a good amount of money, they do think that eating out is more of a better use of their time because they don't have to wash dishes. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like eating really poorly or just not eating at all. Some form of exercise. That could be resistance training, strength training, cardiovascular training, walking your dogs, anything like that. And other types of like just taking care of yourself. Are you brushing your teeth? Are you showering? These are things that kind of went to the wayside. Are you drinking too much? Are you smoking too much? I'm not here to talk about, where I live, marijuana is legal, right? Because I live in Colorado. And I'm not saying if marijuana is inherently good or bad. I'm saying that if your lifestyle factors are really poor and you're just doing compulsions all day long, and you're going into self-pity all day long, and you're smoking, 10 joints a day, that smoking that 10 joints is not helping you. We just have to be realistic about this. A lot of people give me kickback on this. This is common sense. I know it's hard to see when you're in it. It was like me with my addictions. I didn't want to admit it. I knew deep down, but I was so afraid to make changes. So looking at your lifestyle factors, I rarely meet anyone who have reached long level stages of acceptance, stoicism, and a strong mindset of willing to face discomfort who have really poor lifestyle factors. It is possible you could sit on the couch and recover. You can do that, but it's very, very difficult, and it's probably not the best thing for you. The third reason why you're probably still stuck is fear of fear. Now, inside fear of fear, there's three main categories. Being stuck with OCD or symptoms for the rest of your life. Going backwards, the fear of going back to square one, relapses and setbacks and backdoor spikes. And then number three is the fear of developing something new or going back to an old theme, something like that, which kind of goes in that going back to square one. The main one you'll want to focus on is the first one, the fear of being stuck with OCD for the rest of your life, and the catastrophizing that goes along with that. This is terrible. If I notice this for the rest of my life is over. I'll never be able to live a happy life again. How do I get over this? Stuff like that. And the exposure for fear of fear is living your life as best as you can whilst you wear the anxiety cycle and not need it to be gone. So that's very, very important to cover, and something that a big, big mistake I made. But you don't have to make that same mistake. You can actually get yourself to a place where you can get more comfortable in the willingness to experience those sensations. The fourth thing, which is common among all humans, OCD sufferers, anxiety sufferers, and non-sufferers, and that's complaining and self-pity. The majority of the world complains because it's easy. It doesn't take any forethought. It doesn't take, you don't have to be like, oh, well, this isn't really helping me, and I'm not really sure. It's understandable. Even I complain and rant. I like to joke around, so that will kind of mix in there. Comedy, right? Like stand-up comedy is complaining. If you think about it, like my favorite comedians, like George Carlin, he complained for an hour. But it's funny, but it's also important to realize that a lot of the complaining that we do, that extreme complaining, isn't really going to help us. So we're really going to want to bring that down in the long term. It's not about being a good or bad person. It's about we're looking at the behavior itself and realizing it's probably not doing the best thing for us. So we're going to want to tone back on that and realize like, hey, look, this is not helping me. How can I go about changing this? And then going from there. I think that's really, really, really important. Here comes Daisy into the room. Usually I shut the door, but sometimes if the door's not shut all the way, she just barges in, as she just did. So now I got to pet her because she's underneath me. Now, the fifth thing I want to talk about is very important, and I want to state this for the record, that always speak to the provider who's giving you these medications. But switching medications and changing medication dosages can be a large compulsive and just a big problem, because these are psychiatric medications. They can have strong effects, right? It's hard for people to hear because so many people are afraid of the side effects, but it is the truth. So you're going to want to get yourself to a place where you stick with something and you stay with it for a while, no matter how many doubts, intrusive thoughts, images, sensation, urges, especially the urge, because that's what it is. It's primarily an urge about, should I change this medication? Should I not change this medication? How do I get over doing this? I cannot tell you how many people I work with that have a compulsive behavior of going back and forth with medication dosages. And they say to me, well, I'm trying to find the right dose. And that's great. Once you think you find one, stay for it for 6 months to a year. But when you're constantly changing it, what you're actually doing is you're instilling a belief by the behavior, by constantly changing it. I need to find the right medication dosage. I need to have this perfect. Again, always speak to your provider. One of the most common, if not the most common reassurance question in our Facebook group, which you haven't joined yet, OCD Recovery on the Facebook group. We have almost 18,000 members, fastest growing OCD recovery anxiety-based page. It's moderated. We let people know if they're asking reassurance. We give people warnings. We do stuff like that. We really help people and post a lot of great content. I make about anywhere from 100 to 150 Facebook posts in there a year. And I spend some time in there answering questions, which I think is really great. The sixth thing I want to talk about are deadlines. Now, deadlines are interesting. So we have been grown up to believe that everything is a deadline, right? Graduate high school at 18. You break your leg, usually recover 6 to 9 months. You go to university or college 4 years. You go to med school 7 years in America, et cetera, et cetera. We've been, you get a common cold 7 to 10 days. So we've been instilled this conditional belief of this is a deadline, and if not better by then, this is why, and this needs to change. Some people might see serious progress, great progress in 2 months, usually not many. A lot of people can have their life back pretty quickly, but they're probably going to experience all sorts of different themes changing, morphing, and symptoms for a couple years. A lot of people usually are in that 6 months to like 3 year period of seeing a lot of great progress. It doesn't mean you're going to be chronically suffering for all those 3 years. You'll have a lot of great moments, but you'll probably have a lot of moments throughout the week or the month where you're going up, down that roller coaster journey we talk about. So we definitely want to move away from deadlines. There's no such thing as a deadline when it comes to OCD and anxiety recovery. There's a lot of things we don't fully understand. Why is a belief so instilled? Like if you have someone who has a really strong religious OCD belief, and if they've been in a community that's surrounded them with those belief systems and family members, it's not just going to change overnight. It's going to take a while. I surrounded myself with bodybuilding and fitness my entire life. So it was very difficult to get to a place where I could be content with where I am in pursuit of goals, but not needing to actually reach those goals, but still meaning I put my effort in to reach them. That takes a long time, and that was a hard thing, but possible, right? Now, number 7 is something that you just saw in the background. Number 7, and I'll show Daisy and Mile at the end, that really keeps many people stuck is this idea, this myth that you could still be doing compulsions and avoidance behaviors in recovery. This isn't true. That's like saying someone in sobriety from alcohol. This is another thing that we're seeing. If someone's sober from alcohol, they can drink on the weekends. There's only one definition of sobriety. That is no consumption of alcohol and drugs. None, zero, absolutely none, zero. I know it's difficult to hear that. Changing these terms puts out less hope for people. Addiction is a real thing. I just lost another friend of mine yesterday on, was it the 10th today, the 9th? Yeah, I lost someone yesterday to an overdose, a childhood friend of mine. This stuff is very serious. And, you know, the more that we prevail this myth that people can balance this stuff, many of them can't balance it, and we don't know why. I mean, we just anecdotally don't know that. There's always going to be open for debate, but the research is in my favor, in our favor, who think like this. There are a lot of people out there who can't balance it, no matter what anyone says. And if it wasn't like that, then there would be no alcoholism, no drug addiction, stuff like that. So I did want to spend a little bit of time talking about this because there is that prevailing myth that there's no such thing as addiction, and it's simply not true. So very, very key. So you're going to want to give up those subtle behaviors. Again, because the reason why I said that, little kind of off comment there is people will say that, like, oh, I'm sober, but I drink on the weekends. It's a ridiculous statement, and it's very problematic for people who are really trying to change their lives and get sober. So if you want to get better from OCD and anxiety, you're going to have to drop every single compulsion and reassurance behavior. Anyone that's telling you that, you know, you can recover with these behaviors there, simply not true. And that's really important to cover. The last 3 are things I haven't spoke about a whole lot on videos, but I've spoken about them a good amount in one-to-one calls or webinar calls. And number 8 is minimal effort. OCD recovery is not easy. Okay, it takes a lot of effort to get yourself to where you want to go. You know, reading the books on the reading list, sometimes maybe more than once because the books can be difficult from a language barrier perspective. Are you doing your homework? Are you facing those big exposures? Remember, sometimes those 1, 2, 3 exposures that you really don't want to do are holding you back. Or do you have those subtle compulsions, avoidance behaviors? How's your lifestyle factor looking? How are you accepting that you are not putting the effort in to get better? Are you complaining in the WhatsApp groups and other Facebook forums and other OCD forums? The minimal effort is one of the major reasons why people do not achieve their goals in life at all. Like most people, they don't achieve their goals because the effort that they put in, the effort required to reach the goals that they have don't line up. The effort they're putting in is here and their goal is up here, OCD recovery. There's a major discrepancy between that. So that's really, really key. The 9th thing I want to talk about, which is not easy to talk about because there's a lot of myths out there surrounding it, is self-sabotaging yourself with verbiage, such as continually talking about your childhood trauma, narcissist gaslighting, I can't do this, it was a traumatic event, it's outside. When you talk like that, and it's understandable, you're putting the ball back in OCD's court, which isn't good. You're not giving yourself the ability to actually work on the things necessary to change. So I don't even view my OCD as traumatic at all, not even close. And then the reality is if I wanted to, because I was in a mental hospital and I wanted to end my life for so long, if I wanted to use it in a conditional manner, I could weigh that against other people and I would be much higher on the scale than most people, by far, like in life. OCD sufferers in general. But I don't do that because it puts a me against you mentality in there. It puts a conditional other life and self perspective in my philosophies, which I don't like. So I never use the word traumatic. ever. Now, if you want to use it, that's fine. Again, it's not inherently good or bad, but it is a slippery slope when you are using it. And then the way that we see it, and again, everything nowadays is kind of in that realm, right? We're spending a lot of time diving into the past and realizing like, oh, this happened to me, so I can't change. None of that is true because we see people change and change and change and change. So I would try, in my opinion, drop those words as much as you can: narcissist, gaslighting, childhood trauma, and just look at things like, hey, look, this unfortunate event happened to me. And you say, well, Nick, those mean the same thing. They do, but it's the verbiage and the tone and the way you say it that is coming from like, this is my story, you must respect it. And if you don't respect it, I'll never get better. That's the world we're living in right now. We're living in a world where we have a belief, which is it's delusionary belief. It's very problematic, that everyone else needs to cater to us. And I understand because that was me my whole life, but it's also a major problem. And it also doesn't work because you're trying to fight an uphill battle against the world. And number 10, and this encompasses everything in here, an unrealistic perspective on what it takes to recover, which kind of ties into number 8, minimal effort. And I want to say it again to end the video. OCD recovery will more than likely be one of the hardest things you do in your life. And it's very difficult. There's no reason to complain about having OCD. We have it. We can't change your brain. I can't cut my head open and be like, oh, change my brain. Can't go to a store. Didn't change my brain. When those beliefs are being conditioned in our childhood and everything else that happens. And I don't mean like, again, like I was talking about the childhood trauma. I mean like when you're a child, literally a child, and things are happening to you and you don't know they're happening because you have no conscious awareness, right? A 12-year-old person isn't really thinking about their thinking too well because they're not that self-aware. Are there self-aware 12-year-olds out there? I'm sure, but they're not that self-aware, not compared to a very well-read philosophical 40-year-old, or even an 80-year-old who's been through lots of life experiences. So take a realistic perspective. What are you doing that can be changed? Why do you need to change them? Taking the effort, not that minimal effort, looking at what needs to be done to reach OCD and anxiety recovery. So thank you so much for watching. Again, if you're interested in our coaching and webinar services, we have lots of great stuff. info@ocdrecovery.com. We can help you. We love helping people. We work with people all over the world, like 60, 70, 80 different countries, language barriers. We do calls with translators. It's a pretty cool thing. And then we have webinars every single Tuesday at 8:30 p.m. UK time. We have a lot of good ones kind of planned out for the next 2 months. So thank you so much for watching. And as always, everyone, have a great day.